All right, so get this. Some of you sent in this transcript. And let me tell you, it's got some pretty wild claims.
Yeah.
It's talking about a secret the top 1% used to tap into. Wait for it. The power of God,
Oh, wow.
divine wisdom, or just clever clickbait. Let's
Find out.
let's find out.
Right away, that top 1% framing, that's just fascinating.
Oh
It
yeah.
really plays into that human desire for, exclusivity.
Totally.
Makes you feel like you're about to unlock some kind of hidden knowledge, something most people don't even know exists.
Total secrets of the universe revealed.
Yeah.
Vibes, right?
Exactly.
But let's instead of getting all caught up in the hype, let's break down what this video is actually saying.
Okay.
So, it claims that God isn't some, distant being,
Right.
but the actual fabric of reality itself,
Hmm.
found in the spaces between our thoughts and actions.
It's like they're saying the divine is woven into those, pauses in life.
Oh, interesting.
Those moments we usually just overlook, Like
Yeah.
the space between breaths.
Oh.
That quiet moment before you react to something,
Right.
the stillness between two thoughts,
Uh-huh.
that's where they're saying the real God is.
So instead of searching for God in those, grand gestures or religious rituals,
Right.
this video is saying we should look for it in those, the mundane, the everyday moments we usually just take for granted.
It's the everyday stuff.
Exactly.
That's what they're focusing on.
And that's where they bring in this whole concept of awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like stepping back from that constant mental chatter and emotional
Yes.
reactions.
Yeah, all that noise.
To connect with a deeper consciousness.
Right, a deeper awareness.
Which sounds a lot like mindfulness.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Absolutely.
Something tells me that's not a coincidence.
You're right. There's for sure a connection there.
Yeah.
I mean, mindfulness practices have become so popular lately.
Yeah, for good reason.
And for good reason. There's, more and more evidence that cultivating this present moment awareness can have a big impact on us.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, even physically.
So maybe this video is onto something.
Maybe.
I mean, if practicing mindfulness can help us, reduce stress, improve focus, and boost our well-being,
Yeah.
maybe it can also help us tap into that deeper connection this video keeps hinting at.
It's possible.
Right.
They even give a concrete example in the video. They say, imagine you're stuck in traffic, totally fuming about being late.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. But instead of letting that frustration take over, you take a breath, acknowledge the feeling, and choose to shift your focus.
To something else.
Yeah, like the sensation of your breath or maybe the sounds around you.
So it's like hitting that pause button on all the mental drama.
Yes.
And connecting with, a sense of stillness and all the chaos.
Exactly.
Is that what they're getting at?
That's exactly it. And, the video even suggests that this ability to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting totally swept away,
Yeah.
that's actually a key to experiencing the divine.
Interesting.
But here's where things get, a little tricky.
Okay.
They throw in this whole idea that fear is the main obstacle to this kind of connection.
Right. They say fear keeps us from trusting the flow of life and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly.
And of course, they claim that the top 1% have somehow figured out how to overcome fear.
Yeah.
And unlock this divine power.
It's that classic us versus them narrative, right?
Totally.
And while there's definitely truth to the idea that fear can be limiting,
Yeah.
framing, it just raises some red flags for me.
In what way?
Well, it kind of plays into our insecurities, It makes us feel like we're missing out on this exclusive secret.
Right. Everyone else is in on it but us.
Exactly. And only, a select few actually possess it.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you over there struggling with your everyday fears.
Right.
Well, the elite 1% are living fearlessly and tapping into the divine while you're stuck in the mundane. Not exactly a message of hope and empowerment, is it?
Not really. And it also sets up this false dichotomy between fear and faith,
Yeah.
They're saying you can't experience the divine if you're still dealing with fear.
Which seems a bit unrealistic.
Yeah.
Right? We're all human. We all experience fear. It's part of life.
Exactly. And while it's important to, acknowledge and work through our fears,
Yeah.
framing it as this ultimate obstacle to spiritual growth, it's just misleading.
Yeah. And maybe even harmful.
Right. It can create unnecessary shame and self-judgment.
Totally. We're not spiritual enough because we haven't somehow gotten rid of all fear.
Exactly.
So, okay, we've got this, intriguing idea that God is found in the spaces between, but also a bit over the top.
Yeah.
And that fear is, like the main thing blocking us from experiencing it. And then there's this whole 1% thing, which honestly feels a little manipulative.
It totally plays on that human desire for exclusivity
Yeah.
and special knowledge.
But before we just dismiss this whole thing as like clever clickbait,
Yeah.
let's dig a little deeper.
Yeah, let's see if there's anything of value here.
Is there anything valuable in the video's message? Even if we set aside all the questionable framing,
Right.
that's what we'll explore next.
So we've got this whole idea of finding God in those quiet spaces. And, the video claims the top 1% have it all figured out.
Right.
But let's ditch that whole elitist framing for a second
Let's get rid of that.
and ask, how can anyone, no matter who they are, access this deeper connection?
Yeah, because if we're saying the divine is woven into, the very fabric of reality,
Right.
shouldn't it be accessible to everyone,
It should be.
not just some, exclusive club?
Exactly. And I think that's where this idea of reframing comes in.
Okay.
The video talks about shifting our perspective, not choosing to see that divine spark, not just in quiet moments, but in the middle of all the everyday chaos, too.
And so instead of waiting for some, grand spiritual awakening,
Right.
we can just start by paying attention to the present moment,
Yes.
even in those, seemingly mundane situations.
Precisely. They even use the example of being stuck in traffic, which, let's be honest,
Aren't worse.
is the ultimate test of patience for most of us.
For sure.
Instead of letting all that frustration and road rage take over,
Yeah.
you can actually use that time to practice presence.
So instead of, mentally composing that angry email to your boss,
Right.
you take a few deep breaths, notice what's going on in your body.
Yeah,
Maybe listen to a calming song or something.
exactly.
Is that what they mean?
That's the kind of thing they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's about, consciously choosing how you respond to those moments.
Yeah.
The ones that would usually just trigger, stress or negativity. You're not denying the reality of the situation,
Uh-huh.
but you're shifting how you're experiencing it internally.
It's like choosing to find a moment of peace in the middle of a storm, right?
Yes, exactly.
But how do we train ourselves to, do that consistently?
Right.
Our minds are, wired to focus on problems, to
Yeah.
worry, to dwell on the past.
It's our default setting.
How do we break free from that?
Well, it takes practice, but the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Okay.
You can think of it like building a muscle.
Okay.
The
Mhm.
video actually gives some pretty practical advice.
Yeah.
Even amidst all the hype, remember how they talk about paying attention to those spaces between things?
Yeah.
Not just between thoughts,
Yeah.
but between breaths, between actions.
It's like noticing that little pause after you exhale before you inhale again.
Exactly.
Or that moment of stillness before
Yeah.
you reach for your phone
Yeah.
to scroll through social media.
It's like you're hitting pause on autopilot mode. Right. And those tiny pauses, those micro moments of awareness,
Yeah.
those can be so powerful.
Oh, wow.
They create space for us to choose how we want to respond.
Instead of just reacting habitually.
Exactly.
So we're seeing a pattern here. Pay
Yeah.
attention to those spaces. Notice when you're getting caught up in your head
Right.
and gently guide your attention back to the present moment.
It's all about bringing it back to the now.
And over time, this can help us cultivate a deeper sense of connection.
It can.
Not just to ourselves, but to, the world around us.
To everything.
They even talk about seeing the divine in everyone you meet,
They do.
which might sound a bit far-fetched at first.
Yeah.
But, if we're going with this idea that the divine is, woven into reality,
Yeah.
it makes sense that we'd see glimpses of it everywhere, right?
It does.
Even in people who annoy us the most.
Even them, it's about shifting from a mindset of separation to a mindset of interconnectedness. Recognizing we're all part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
Okay, but let's be real. Not everyone's going to buy into that whole seeing God in everyone thing.
Right.
Some people might think it's, too out there or even offensive.
Absolutely. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not about forcing anyone to believe anything specific or
Right.
adopt a particular spiritual framework.
It's more about the underlying principle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The idea that recognizing our shared humanity can lead to, more compassion and understanding.
That's the core of it.
So even if you don't literally see God in everyone you meet,
Yeah.
this practice of, looking for the good in others,
Right. Yeah.
acknowledging their inherent worth,
Absolutely.
that can have a huge impact on your relationships and your outlook on life.
It changes everything.
It's like choosing to see the world through a lens of kindness
Yeah.
and compassion rather than judgment and separation.
And that shift in perspective, it can be incredibly transformative
For us and for, the world around
for
us.
everyone.
This is starting to sound less like some exclusive 1% secret
Right.
and more like a path that anyone can follow.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices, practicing awareness, and,
Okay.
cultivating a more connected way of being in the world.
It's a journey,
It is.
and we can all, strive for that,
We can.
no matter where we are on our own, spiritual journeys. We've
Absolutely.
talked about reframing our experiences,
Right.
paying attention to the spaces between,
Mm-hmm.
choosing to see the world through a more connected lens.
It's all connected.
But the video also talks about this idea of letting go of fear.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in?
Well, fear is often the biggest thing holding us back from experiencing that kind of connection and freedom this video is talking about.
Right.
When we're consumed by fear, we close ourselves off.
Yeah.
We miss out on opportunities for growth, for joy.
And they claim fear is just an illusion,
Right.
which sounds, a bit simplistic. But I think there's a deeper truth there.
There is. It's not that fear doesn't exist, but it's usually based on thoughts,
Not reality.
not reality. We worry about things that might never happen. We replay past mistakes in our minds.
Yeah.
We create these mental scenarios that just fuel our anxiety.
So the key is to, recognize those fear-based thoughts for what they are.
Yes,
Just thoughts, not necessarily truths.
exactly. And then we can choose to challenge them,
Okay.
to question those limiting beliefs that keep us, small and afraid.
So what are they suggesting we do instead?
Well, the video says the real God, that deeper connection, it isn't afraid of anything.
Which, that might sound a bit abstract.
It does.
But if we think about it in terms of, interconnectedness,
Yeah.
if we're all part of this, grand cosmic dance,
Right.
then maybe there's a bigger picture we're not always seeing.
Exactly. And when we trust in that bigger picture,
Yeah.
when we choose to have faith in something beyond our own understanding, then we can start to let go of those fear-based stories we tell ourselves.
So instead of letting fear, paralyze us,
Yeah.
we can use it as a chance to, deepen our trust,
Exactly.
lean into the unknown.
Embrace the adventure.
It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity and fear
Yes.
to a mindset of abundance and possibility,
It's a total shift in perspective.
which can be incredibly liberating.
It can.
All right, so we've covered a lot. Mindfulness, reframing, letting go of fear.
It's a lot to unpack.
But they also talk about how this way of living affects our actions,
Yeah.
how it influences how we show up in the world.
It changes everything.
What do they have to say about that?
Well, that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
How does this idea of, connecting with the divine,
Uh-huh.
seeing the world through a more connected lens,
Yeah.
how does that translate into actual action?
Okay.
How does it change how we interact with others, approach our work, contribute to the world around us? That's where things get really interesting.
So we left off talking about how this so-called 1% secret, finding the divine in the everyday, could actually change how we act.
Right. This is where it gets really practical.
Okay.
The video suggests that when we start to see the world through this lens of interconnectedness,
Uh-huh.
when we cultivate that awareness of the divine spark within ourselves and others,
Yeah.
it naturally flows into how we interact with the world.
So it's not just about having some mystical experience on a mountaintop.
No.
It's about bringing that connection into our everyday lives.
Exactly.
Our relationships, our work.
It's about living it.
They even say that our actions become an expression of that divine energy,
Yeah.
that we're not just working for ourselves, but as part of a larger, creative force.
A larger purpose.
They actually use the phrase co-creating with the universe, which might sound a bit out there.
It does.
But it kind of makes sense if we think about that interconnectedness we were talking about.
Yeah.
If we're all part of this larger, web of existence,
Right.
maybe our actions ripple outwards, impact the world in ways we don't even realize.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like we're tapping into a source of inspiration and creativity
Yeah.
that flows through us and guides what we do.
It's a flow state.
But how does that actually work in real life?
Right.
I mean, a lot of people listening are probably juggling, jobs, families,
Yeah, all the everyday stuff.
all the things that keep us busy. How do we integrate this, co-creating with the universe
Mm-hmm.
thing
Uh-huh.
into that reality.
It's about bringing that sense of awareness of intention into everything you do.
Okay.
Like imagine approaching your work not just as a means to an end,
Yeah.
but as a chance to express your talents, to contribute something meaningful.
So even if you're not, saving lives or creating amazing art,
Yeah.
you can still find purpose and fulfillment in what you do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's about finding that alignment between your actions and your values,
Okay.
between your inner world and your outer world.
Right.
And that alignment can create a sense of flow.
Oh, like being in the right place at the right time.
Yes. Things just effortlessly falling into place.
Which sounds a lot like that divine flow the video keeps mentioning.
It is. It's about trusting that there's a bigger picture unfolding.
Even when we can't see it.
Exactly.
And allowing ourselves to be guided by, something larger than our egos.
Letting go of that control.
Okay, so we've talked about how this 1% God secret can translate into action.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to something we touched on before.
Okay.
This idea of seeing the divine in everyone, even people who, challenge us,
Yeah.
can be tough to accept.
It can.
How do we reconcile that with the fact that some people are just really difficult?
That's a great question, and that's where compassion and boundaries come in.
Okay.
Seeing the divine spark in someone, it doesn't mean condoning their behavior or letting yourself be mistreated.
You don't have to put up with bad behavior.
Exactly. It's about recognizing their inherent worth as a human being while also setting those healthy boundaries to protect yourself.
So it's like holding that tension between, acknowledging their humanity
Yeah.
and recognizing that their behavior's not okay.
Right. And that can be tricky.
It sounds like a delicate balance.
It is, but an important one.
Finding that balance between, like, love and wisdom,
Yeah.
compassion and discernment.
That's the key.
Okay, so we've unpacked this whole 1% God secret.
We did it.
We've explored the potential benefits and, the potential pitfalls, mindfulness, reframing, letting go of fear, acting from a place of connection.
It's a lot.
But at the end of the day, what does it all mean for the listener? What's the takeaway?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that spirituality is a personal journey.
Yeah.
There's no one right way to do it.
It's not one size fits all.
Exactly. What resonated with you in this deep dive might be totally different for someone else.
Right. It's not about blindly following someone else's beliefs
No.
or practices.
It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
What feels authentic, what inspires you.
And leaving the rest behind.
Exactly. And it's about continuing to explore, to question, to experiment.
Keep learning.
Maybe this deep dive sparked your curiosity about mindfulness.
Maybe.
Or inspired you to, look for that divine spark in new places.
Or maybe it just, reinforced something you already knew.
It happens.
Whatever it is, we hope you got something out of this exploration.
We do.
And remember, this isn't the end.
Right.
Keep seeking, keep growing, and keep trusting your own path.
Beautifully said.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time.
Until next time, keep those minds open, those hearts curious, and those spirits connected.